We are live. Good evening, everyone. I know this is a little early than what you're used to, but we got to get it in when we can get it in. So I just want to thank you for tuning in to think about it. If you're on live right now, I want to thank you. And if you catch the broadcast later, I want to thank you as well. So again, this is an early one, but it's going to be a good one. So today, my special guest is the one and only Mr. James Barfield. Yeah,
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So can you introduce yourself? And for those that don't know, in church they say for those that do know and for those that don't.
Well, there's a lot that think they know me that don't know me. but anyhow, I'm James Barfield. I am an activist, a real activist for concerns and issues pertaining to the African American community throughout Wichita and even sometimes around the state. But my advocacy group is called Kansas Advocates for Racial Justice and Equality. Now, what that means is, we advocate. We don't just talk, we advocate for issues. And, we've got issues like the investigation or the revelation of text messages that were homophobic, misogynistic, and racial in nature by members of our sheriff's department and members of our Wichita Police Department. These are damning text messages that basically harm the sheriff's office, the Wichita Police Department, the city of Wichita, okay, and others. Now, I'm not so sure that, there's a lot of lip service, but I'm not so sure there's a serious effort to really get to the bottom of this issue.
Right.
Because one of the things that I'm very, very disturbed by is none of the people that were involved have faced any type of penalization.
Right.
No consequences for their actions. Now,
Right.
clearly, these were policy violations on the part of the Wichita Police Department and the part of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office. Now, they talk about bringing in the district attorney. Now, I understand because of Brady Gigolo, you have to inform and turn over this information to the district attorney.
Right.
But you don't need the district attorney's approval to fire somebody that violates your policy.
Exactly. And so just so we sure that everybody is on the same page, we found out, well, look, I'm gonna act like I don't know all this stuff. So the Wichita Eagle put out an article in which a whistleblower within WPD informed them about some text messages that were going back and forth between WPD officers, the sheriff department, and that this happened last year, April of 2021, around that time.
No, 2020.
2020, that's even longer. Okay.
Yes.
And so the Eagle reported that there was very little done about it. Like you said, there was racist remarks. There were what did you say? What was the other two? Was it homophobic? I don't know.
Homophobic and misogynistic.
Right. And so the people find out that this was kind of swept under the carpet, right? And part of the people that were in this little group chat were actually members of the SWAT department.
Mm-hmm.
And they were actually officers that have killed people in the line of duty before, right? So people have came up dead, and then the ones that have been responsible were making these jokes like it was funny. And we found out that the captain of the SWAT team, I believe he was captain, he said, so, December of 2020, we were all talking about de-escalating situations, even here recently with the Cedric Lofton case, we're talking about de-escalation and how that fits in. And so then we see that, or we read that the captain said, we're the ultimate de-escalators.
Yeah, no. We permanently de-escalate those that need to be permanently de-escalated.
So does Sheriff Easter and the city manager and the county manager, Tom, I can't think of his last name. County manager.
Schultz.
Yeah.
Tom Stoltz.
Tom Stoltz, who used to be, everybody doesn't know this, he came from WPD.
Yes.
Come on, y'all, you got to connect the dots.
Yes.
He knows these people, right? He knows these people. And for someone, not just a regular sworn officer, whether you're on the sheriff or a police side, but a sworn officer, and then you say that we're the ultimate de-escalators?
Mm-hmm.
Do they not understand how scary that is? Do they not understand? And I hope Ruben Eccles he's listening now. He will, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying he had a nephew that was being put over by the police, and he wasn't going to stop just willy-nilly. Do they understand that we have an innate fear of the police now because of statements like that? Do they not understand how serious that is, and that everybody connected needs to be let go? Do they not get it?
Let me share something with you. I'm on the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Community Advisory Board, okay? And if you can see this, let me get this up there. You see that? Wait, am I going the wrong way? See that? Okay. This is, we get this summary every meeting, and we meet quarterly. Now, this case we're talking about, I want to show you here. I want to tell you, we received this case back in 2021, and I'll tell you what was released to us. Okay. Now, and here's what it says. It was alleged that 2 sergeants and the lieutenant engaged in a conversation through text messages that brought discredit on themselves and the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office. The texts were homophobic, racial, and misogynistic in nature. Now, that's what we were given. Now, this is an attempt at transparency. But when I saw that paper that Monday morning and it detailed what these guys were, hey, listen, I texted the sheriff about 7 o'clock in the morning and said, hey, you give me a call as soon as you have some free time. Well, to my surprise, he called me within about 15 minutes.
Okay.
And my first words out of my mouth was, sir, I'm going to be perfectly blunt and clear with you. I am pissed.
Right.
And he says, okay, I don't blame you. Now, he knows at that time this stuff was happening. Okay. He said, I don't blame you. And he says, well, we talked about this. I said, sir, yeah, we talked. And what he meant by talking was this, what I just read you. I said, you never told us the extent of these conversations, because if you had, certainly I would have had many more questions for you. Now, I said, the other side of the coin is, when we talked about this, I asked the question, does the fact that these people retired or resigned, does that end the investigation? Okay. I was told, no, it doesn't. Because I'm saying, okay, I want to see some consequences here.
Right.
And he said, well, from my standpoint, if they resign or if they retire, I can't, and they're no longer employees, and I can't fire them.
Let me ask you a question real quick. So I saw that too in the paper, that the sheriffs and those deputies are no longer with the sheriff's department. But what nobody has made clear, is it because of the incident, or is it because they wanted to leave on their own? It was
because of the incident. Let me read further to you.
Okay.
Here we'll talk about the lieutenant. Okay, he was charged with unbecoming conduct. It was sustained. And then we'll talk about what actions were taken. He retired prior to disciplinary action. Okay. Now the second one, Sergeant number 1, same charges, action taken, retired prior to disciplinary action. Now number 3, Sergeant 2, unbecoming contact, and same charge. It was sustained, and his action was he resigned while under investigation for domestic violence. That's how they actually found out about this, through this investigation of this domestic violence issue.
Okay. Well,
so let me just say one thing to you. Let me say one thing to you. So what I said to the sheriff, these guys basically they chose to retire for one reason: to save and protect their pension.
Okay, so I came from Sedgwick County, right?
You what?
So I retired from Sedgwick. Well, okay. I retired. I got the pension plan. I worked long enough for the county to qualify for the pension plan.
Okay.
I know for a fact you can still get fired, but get your retirement. I know you can. I know this. And so if they were going to get some penalties, they could have still been fired and qualified for their retirement.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
It's like I said, you've got a policy violation. This should be a firing offense.
Yes.
I don't care under what conditions. And like I said, you don't need the district attorney's office to investigate whether or not you're going to fire somebody. Exactly. I mean, he investigates to find out if there's criminal charges. And what Easter says to me is this doesn't reflect any criminal activity.
Well, okay. Like, I think I'm a kind of a humorous person. I kind of get comedy. I'm telling you, I did not understand. In case anybody doesn't know, I'm just going to tell them. There was they put a naked man sitting on top of the body of George Floyd. Now, I find no humor in that. I rack my brain like, what's funny about that? I can't figure it out. Right? So if it's not funny, it's dangerous.
Well, do you know the latest, where the latest we're at on this?
That a black man shared it first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I want you to say it loud and clear. I'm going to say it too. Do not get distracted. So what do you feel about them placing that out in the public? What do you think about that?
Well, the first thing I think was look, it was dumb on his part. But when he showed that, he said, "This is what you're working for." Okay, this was, they were up at the 21st and Arkansas doing that little, what they call a mini riot, what she really was, a disturbance, whatever. They were up there. And so he then gives this to the SWAT guy, okay, and says, "This is what you guys are working for." Well, first of all, if I had access to a video like that, I'm going to the chief of police or the city manager. I'm not going to some SWAT guy. I'm going to turn this in and say, "Hey, man, look, this is what I found amongst our officers here. This brings, as Sheriff said, this brings discredit, okay, to our police department. This confirms what people have been saying, that we've got racist members on our police force, and I want to get rid of them."
Right. So the officer that showed it to them, he wasn't giving them a heads up. He thought it was funny.
He thought it was cool.
He thought it was cool. Okay. So that takes it to a whole nother point, and I don't want to keep getting this mixed up, but I don't want people to be distracted. I don't care if a black man put out a black racist post and 20 white people shared it and whatever. It's racist, and it has no bearing. It should not be allowed. Period.
It's racist behavior. It's racist behavior. That's what it is. I don't care where it comes from. It's racist behavior.
And when the black guy showed it to the white guy should have turned his behind in. Yep. But he didn't. He shared it.
So now the black guy finds himself under investigation. Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you. Okay. So I'm going to jump over a little bit. So we find that a lot of black people find that they have to assimilate to be able to get along and to prosper. And I think we keep seeing incident after incident where assimilation just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I think anybody, and for me, from a social justice standpoint, I think anybody should be able to get any job that they're qualified for. They shouldn't have to change who they are and do things differently and able to do their job. If you're qualified, you should be able to do the job. So, and this is me. When black people feel they have to do things that degrade themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are just as harmful as anybody else. And I'm not going to call this person's name, but you and I both know, maybe somebody, no, I ain't gonna do it. We have Black people that stand up and say, we want voting rights for Black people. We think Black people should be able to do whatever they want to do. And the very same people that are holding up that progress in Congress, that are fighting against the any voting rights bill, we got somebody that works. We have Black people that work for those people, and they proudly do it. And so I just want to tell Black people, when you assimilate, when you downgrade yourself and your race, you're harming all of us. You may think you've arrived. I get to tell jokes, ha, 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 with the white man, ha, ha, ha. That's not funny, guys. I get a paycheck from the most racist white individual that's representing my state. That's not cute. That's not cute.
Did you see my post earlier today on Facebook?
I have not. To be honest, I am on a somewhat of a sabbatical.
Okay.
I'm on a personal journey, and so I haven't done social media the way I normally. I'm on there, but not the way I usually am. So catch me up. What I missed?
Okay. So here's the deal. I put a post on there this morning with a picture of the congressman that you're talking about, and the caption I put over there was, "This guy is a fruitcake," because what this guy says is he's not going to vote for this Black Supreme Court nominee because he feels that she will violate the Constitution and it'll have an effect on Kansas values.
Okay. Oh, I'm gonna say his name. Is it Marshall? Is he,
it's
or
Roger
is it the
Marshall,
other?
Absolutely.
Okay. I went before Roger Marshall was in office. I'm not my timing. I went to his home and I protested him representing the state of Kansas, because one of the first things he did was that he tried to say that the election in 2020 wasn't legal, but it's the same election that he won.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't make sense.
Either look, I mean, these guys that are buying into the Trump's lie to try to curry favor with Trump and have the backing and support of Trump at their own expense, because everybody in the world knows that this was a lie. 60 judges looked at it. There was never any evidence to prove any of the accusations and false claims they were making. And yet, these guys like him and Cruz and Graham, all of them, will still go out there and present this bold-faced lie. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
And to say that I'm not going to vote for somebody else, but they're going to go against the Constitution when they go against it every single day. What is slap in the face?
And let me tell you something, Luanda. You mentioned about somebody that's working for this guy. Mm-hmm. See, they don't understand. The real reason he's not going to vote for her is because she's Black.
She's Black.
So therefore, this guy has the same attitude about you behind your back.
And you've been in the workforce, you've had your own businesses, so you've been on both sides of the fence. But in corporate America, I've done my time. I've done my time. And so in corporate America, I remember when my dad would tell me that, like in the 70s, when they first started doing the affirmative action, and there was always that one Black person, everybody had to make sure they had that one Black person. They didn't want 2, 3, 4, 5. They wanted one Black person, right? And so we hear, in 2022, affirmative action it didn't work. It's stupid. Black people are just getting hired just because they Black, right? But you find entities that they love that one Black person, and they put that one Black person up front to say, "See, y'all, I got a Black person."
There you go. See, I'm older than you, Luanda, but at the very beginning, all these companies hired a Black receptionist. Okay, so she's the first thing you see when you walk in the door. She's right up front. Okay, hey, as Trump said, See our African American?
Right. And so, and I know everybody's chasing the bag right now. Everybody needs a job. But I'm always thinking of that scripture, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I'm going to paraphrase it. It says, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but to lose his soul? So that black officer, and I'm sure it's going to come out. We're going to know his name or her name sooner or later. What did it profit you to go along with that nonsense? Or and honestly, if he shared that picture, you better believe it wasn't the first one that he was a part of.
Well, and right quick before we leave the Roger Marshall thing, the person that you're talking about that is his employee doesn't feel no shame in her game.
None.
Because she thinks she's accepted, okay, by these Republicans. And the minute she walks out the door, she's no longer a Republican. Guess what she is? Black. No, it goes deeper than that.
Okay, what is she? What is
the N-word?
The N-word.
Yes.
Yes, because if you can blatantly say, I'm not going to vote for the John Lewis Voting Act.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing the John Lewis Voting Act is to make sure that if you change any of the voting laws in your state, that there's another level of people looking to make sure it's legal. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. And so when you have the Republican Party fighting for legal elections, why wouldn't you want the John Lewis Act?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because with the John Lewis Act in place, more black people get to vote. And when more black people vote, Republicans lose.
Right.
Okay, so now we've got a census report that comes out that's showing the most growth in the last 10 years has been between black and Hispanics. The white birth rate is down. Okay, so look, it's just a matter of time. These guys can read the handwriting on the wall. In about the next 20 to 30 years, white people will be the minority in this country.
And did you see the reports on the actual census? They undercounted us.
Yes. I'm not surprised by that.
Okay, so, and this is why I want people to when we talk about vote, and I know people say, well, it doesn't matter. It matters so much. So the census is the numbers of the census dictate what your voting block looks like, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so people that don't vote are probably the same people that don't vote, probably didn't do the census count either, right? Even though we know people did the census count and they undercounted us. But that's how they can cheat and change the voting block, right? And so even like, I think the biggest disparity that's coming is in Wyandotte County.
Yes.
Wyandotte County, heavily black.
Mm-hmm.
They created a map to split them, not even in half, just to.
But half of them is out in Western Kansas.
Yeah, make that make sense. And so
out in rural Kansas.
Wyandotte, rural Kansas, make that make sense. This is how it makes sense, guys. Voting matters. It matters. And so they want to discourage as many people as they can from voting. And they say, okay, we can't stop them from voting, but we'll make their vote less effective. We'll put this population dead center in the middle of this population, and their vote won't even count. And so that's why voting matters. And that's why everybody, even if you have to hold your nose when you go to the polls, vote and pretend you're voting in your best interest, even though you don't believe it. Pretend you're voting in your best interest, and I promise you it will be in your best interest.
Wanda, let me say something to you. We're laughing about this.
I know.
This really is a serious issue.
It is so serious.
Let me just tell you something. Black folks continually talk about we don't have any power. You know what I mean? And yet, I continue to say, yeah, you have power. You have two powers that you don't use. Number one, God gave each and every one of us a voice,
right?
But we don't use it,
right?
Okay. Now, we have the right to vote, but we don't use it.
Right.
Okay, so basically, we got to get to the point where we can stop blaming others because of the fact we don't utilize the powers that we have.
Right.
Now, let me give you a case in point. In my opinion, Laura Kelly does not deserve another 4 years as far as black people are concerned. All right? But you take the Kansas African American Affairs Commission, which has not had an effect and any impact on the African Americans across the state for the last 15 years. And yet, Laura Kelly has the audacity to insult our intelligence by saying they do good work in these areas of what they're supposed to be doing, which is they're supposed to be advocating and representing in education, in housing, in welfare, in jobs. They're doing none of that. And she has the audacity to say they do good work. Show me the proof.
Show us the proof. And see, and this is why some black people and probably other minorities as well feel like their vote doesn't matter, and that's why they're not going to vote. As I don't know if ineffective is the right word, but in the state of Kansas, and I know our governor had a lot of pressure against her. She had to give in on some stuff because she was surrounded by Republicans. But there is no way on God's green earth will I ever vote for Chris Kobach or any of those people. I would never vote for them. Laura Kelly may have not been what we wanted, but I'd be doggone if I let a Chris Kobach or what's his name, even who's running for governor?
Gary Smith.
Even him, I don't want him as our governor. Absolutely not.
But let me say one thing to you, LaWanda. At some point in time, people have been, and I'm talking about Democrats,
right,
have been taking us for granted.
Yes.
For the last 50 years.
Yes.
So therefore, we find ourselves today fighting for the same rights that we fought for 50 years ago.
50 years.
The voting rights. So what's changed under the Democrat? Now, here's what I'm saying. I'm not saying we have to vote for Derek Smith. No. In this election, we sent out the governor's race. Okay, now, if that causes a defeat for her, it sends a message to the Democratic Party. So that the next Democrat that comes in is running realizes, hey, we cannot take them for granted. Okay? Right. We cannot do what we've done in the past. We have got to talk that talk and then walk the walk.
Okay. But with the gerrymandering going on right now, they won't do well. All the maps are going to go to court. They're going to court, right? So hopefully they get thrown out. But what if the Republicans are successful? That means for the next 10 years, Kansas is already Republican. So what if the next 10 years we're stuck? And you know what? I don't want to just give somebody my vote. I do not want to do that. But I cannot let a Trumpster. I can't do it.
Okay, LaWanda, let me give you one point here.
Okay.
And you've heard this before, but we don't take it to heart. It applies in voting. The definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result. So you got to send a message, because if we keep doing the same thing, giving away our vote and getting nothing in return, it will never end.
There's a Republican, Mr. Keenan Smith, that want to get in this conversation. I need to send you a link because Keenan, man, you got a problem. The Republican Party, Mr. Barfield, if you go over to comments, you can stay on this screen. You should be able to see comments. So Keenan is saying that the Democratic Party of Kansas hasn't done, y'all know I don't cuss, SHIT for black people.
I don't see any comments.
If you go to the top.
It says private chat and comments.
Okay, hit comments. I want you to hit comments.
Oh, okay.
See them?
Okay, now I see them. Okay. All right.
So Keenan is saying that, and Yeah, y'all know I've been dying, and Keenan and I are cool. Just everybody know, me and Keenan are cool. I've been dying to have a real talk with a real Republican, like for real, for real. But Keenan is saying that the Republicans are fighting. Okay, let me do this. Let me be the host. Keenan Smith has said that Republicans are fighting for Black people and giving more money than Black Democrats. And he also said the Democratic Party of Kansas hasn't done anything for Black people. Kansas and the Republican Party of Kansas actually is more effective and inviting to Black people. I need some clarification on that. Because maybe I need to be educated. Maybe there's something going on that I've missed. But what I see on the federal level is that our representatives are fighting against everything that would benefit Black people. Everything. They won't allow federal funds to come into Kansas. We can't get Medicaid passed. That would help low income. It would help seniors. It would help so many people. If you don't have health insurance, man, you're in bad shape. We all know, and I don't want to bring his name up, but we all probably know somebody that's been sick that didn't have insurance. Mm-hmm. And they were basically, I do have an example of a guy that was in a car accident. It was a few years ago. In a car accident, he was hurt, beat up real bad. They gave him in, okay, checked him in. Okay, we need your insurance card. I don't have one. They gave him in 2 Advil and kicked him out. Like, real.
That's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. Yes.
And so for somebody to say that the Republican Party, who's in control of Kansas, is doing more for Black people, I need some examples. Of course they're inviting. Of course. Absolutely inviting.
Well, here's the bottom line. We've been paying too much attention to what they say and not enough attention to what they do.
Right.
Okay. Now, here's my message to those people that say, "Oh, my vote won't count. I'm not going to vote." Well, listen. If Black folks had not turned out in record numbers in Georgia, we would not have a Black senator from Georgia today.
Right.
Okay. Right. And this is why they're trying so hard to stop Black people from voting. They know when we can get Blacks to vote in numbers, the Republican Party loses. They know that.
Right.
Now, if your vote was not important, why are they fighting so hard to keep you from voting?
Right. Okay. So it's a fight between parties, not races. It's a fight actually between conservatives and everybody else, right? People would say, well, Black people used to be in the Republican Party. Yes, but then when the conservatives left the the Democratic Party, and they went to the Republican Party, it changed. We got out of there.
Yeah.
We literally said we out, right? Yep. Because we understand that what the conservatives, what their agenda has always been and what it is. And we can circle that right back to the police department and why the police department was ever founded. It was to hold us down and to hold us back.
Keep them in their place.
Yes. And so you can say that the Republican Party is doing more for the Black people. Let me give you another example. Ty Masterson, and this is in Kansas, y'all. Those energy polls, those polls went up in the Black community, in one of the poorest areas. And I don't want to dog the people that are there, but it went to an area that there's a low economic demographic, right? Gail Finney, she raised the flag and said, hey, this is not right. This is not right. We got to do something about this. Gail presented bills. She up there fighting, right? And we get some traction. I'm up there fighting with her. I'm sending letters. And a lot of concerned people did, right? Gail, Representative Finney had a bill right there at the very last hour. Who steps in and kills her bill? Republican Ty Masterson. And we find out he actually is on the payroll for Wichita State University. And we also find out that the Koch brothers, even though it was only one, the Koch brothers fund the fund that pays Ty Masterson through WSU. Come on, y'all. Tell me how the Republican Party is benefiting blacks in Kansas. They're fighting us. So Gail was fighting. Representative Finney was fighting to make sure that doesn't happen again. And she really wanted some more reparations for the ones that were truly affected. And WSU had nothing to do with this. I mean, everybody was saying that the polls were put up for the future use of WSU, but WSU was quiet the entire time. There was no representation from WSU. But at the final hour, her bill got killed.
Money. Feed the palm, grease the palm, baby. Okay, now, here's the thing. And this is what I tell people all the time. Each election cycle, get a copy of the campaign finance reports. That will tell you who not to vote for because it will show you whose pockets they're in.
Right.
Okay? Well, we don't utilize that feature. Get a copy of the campaign finance report, folks. You'll find out how many people that are supposed to be representing you are representing big oil, big pharmaceutical, tobacco companies, all of that. You can find out by looking at the campaign finance reports. And listen, I'll tell you one other thing. We've been fighting for years about payday loans, in Kansas. But look at the finance report and see how many payday loan companies are lining the pockets of Republican congressmen and senators in Kansas.
And we know payday loans, who do they affect? Poor people.
Where are they located?
People that look like me. I'm barely a paycheck. I'm a step away from being a poor people, right? And so when we look at all of those different things, we talk about, you just said payday loans. We talk about our state government. We tried to get, and Senator Aletha Fowl showed me paperwork when the Citizens Review Board, the whole process came up on the state level. And Wichita was in favor of a Citizens Review Board with me until it hit the state floor, right? Until it hit the floor in Topeka. And y'all gonna get mad at me. But you know who was one of the biggest persons fighting against it?
Who?
Our police chief that just left.
I'm not surprised. Because look, in the police departments all across the country, the FOP basically calls the shots. Okay? And you've got right here in our city, and I'll say this right here publicly, we got a city manager that withholds what's in our best interest because he's afraid he'll offend the FOP. Okay, and that's what happens. So we have the same thing with police chiefs. That is why when we have the public session on the whoever is selected for the next police chief, we've got to put the question to him: are you in favor of an independent Citizens Review Board? Because what we have right now is so far from independence, it's not funny.
But do you think anybody would actually say I'm in favor of that?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. And if he doesn't, he doesn't deserve the job.
He doesn't. No, he or she will not deserve the job. And I hope. I mean, even like right now, right? We don't know who's doing the independent investigation.
Well, you see, this is why we get away from transparency, which we are entitled to, which we should demand, and accountability, which we're entitled to, and we should demand. Now, let me tell you what's going on right now. The same thing is going on with the police department that's going on with the county about the killing of this 17-year-old. They want to get this thing off the front pages of the newspaper.
Right.
Okay, they're hoping that in 60, 90 days, it will blow away. We'll have another issue that will take our attention and our focus away from, this situation we've got going on at the police department. But let me tell you, I guarantee you, if we don't get some accountability and we don't get some punishment for those officers, within 90 days, we'll have another situation.
We'll have another one. Yes, exactly. When we were in the streets, and I'm saying it was so many people in 2020 across the country, in Kansas and Wichita, that were standing up when we saw the video of what happened to George Floyd. Black folks have been saying for a long time that there's something wrong with the system. There's something wrong with the system, and we constantly get overlooked, like, oh no, the system's fine, you just need to do what the police tell you to do and you'll go home safely. It's okay, go ahead and get arrested and then you'll have your day in court. Like, that's not a good thing all the time. So if I feel like I didn't do anything, I get arrested because I don't want to be combative with the police department or the sheriff, so I take me in, right? So now I got to get an attorney, or somebody maybe I've been a model citizen. I get to OR myself out. Okay. I still got to go to court, and I got to still prove that I didn't do what I was accused of. It means I got to miss work. If I have children, they may get some stigma from mom or dad being arrested, because, when we get arrested, it's blasted on TV.
Yes.
Everybody know. I didn't get arrested, y'all. LaWanda got arrested and she did it. Everybody gonna know. It doesn't mean I'm guilty, but everybody know I've been arrested, right? And so it doesn't necessarily work for us to just say, okay, take me to jail. We saw Sandra Bland is like, just give me the ticket so I can go about my business. She ended up in jail and never went home again.
Right.
And so when you have sheriff's officers, or you have the SWAT team, those are the ones that are the snipers, the sharpshooters. They can be on the top of the building, I'm exaggerating, 300 feet away, and they can shoot you right here and take you out.
Right.
And when they say we're the ultimate de-escalators, no, this should not be. It shouldn't take 2 or 3. When the city manager said it's going to take about 2 or 3 weeks to investigate. I talked to some city council people. Well, it's going to take a couple of weeks. Trust the process. I talked to somebody that's on the sheriff board and on the city side as a citizen. Trust the process. I'm like, I want to trust the process, but I haven't been given anything to trust. And, we're going to have another conversation. I'm going to bring on I've been wanting to get a true Republican on the show, and to show you how the Republican Party works. They had to get permission to be on my show. I'm like, permission from who?
I've never heard of such. Never heard of such.
Yes.
I've never heard of such.
And you can see I went to 2 prominent Republicans in Wichita. One of them just totally blew me off, and the other one is the one that said, I got to get permission. Now, I will say that there was Johnny said he would come on the show, but I didn't. That's my bad. I didn't take him up on his offer. But I had 2 prominent Republicans that I went to, Black Republicans, and I know there's a lot of I know a lot of Black Republicans in Wichita. So I'm not dogging Black Republicans just because I want to dog a Black Republican. I don't. My thing is this: with the climate that we're in right now, we see there's people fighting for reparations. They're fighting for that HB something, just to get a study done on reparations. It keeps getting voted down, right? That's Republicans voting it down. We're trying to get the Voting Act just so people can vote and be comfortable. Shot down by Republicans, right? And so that's my thing. It's okay. I know people say, well, the Democrat Party is dogging you. And I think the Democratic Party absolutely needs to get sitting around trying to take the high ground, and they keep trying to take the ground away from us. So our high ground keep getting lower and lower, not because we've done anything, it's because we're losing ground, right? And so, but with that said, all we have to do, and independents too, because independents can vote either way they want to vote, sure, right? And so I just think we all need to be on one accord as to what works best for the people. If there used to be moderate Republicans, right? And I could rock with a moderate Republican back, 10, 15. They got overran by the Tea Party. The Tea Party's like, we're getting rid of the moderates. And now the conservatives are getting rid of the Tea Party people. I mean, the real hardcore. So there was a time I could rock with moderate Republicans because they were just trying to do what was right for everybody. And I think this is what we all want.
Let me one other issue I want to address here right quick. We talk about police reform, and the biggest obstacle to police reform right now is qualified immunity. Okay. Yes. Now you've got Democrats willing and fighting to remove this qualified immunity because many police officers do terrible things and stand behind this qualified immunity. So the Republicans are fighting like crazy to keep qualified immunity in place. And let me just say this to you. The captain that remains on the force of the Wichita Police Department that was involved in these text messages is the same guy that was charged with killing Marcus Smart in 2012. Okay? Wow. Mark Bennett did his so-called investigation, said he couldn't find enough evidence to charge him. So when it goes to court, and I've got the full transcript here, the judge says, I'm going to dismiss the charges for one reason, because I have a duty under federal law to dismiss it under qualified immunity. But he says a reasonable jury would find these officers guilty as charged, and he gave about 7 different reasons why. Okay? So this is another area that Republicans refuse to give in and would solve a lot of problems if these officers were not granted qualified immunity.
Right. And Mr. Barfield, you know that you and I were part of the racial profiling. Somebody asked me about how the NAACP stands on this. And I'm just going to be clear. I do not want to talk on behalf of the NAACP, period. I want them to speak on behalf of themselves. I know I'm a member, but think about it. This is my show and this is my identity. And I don't want anybody to think I'm representing anything else but me. I'll invite somebody from NAACP on and see if they'll come on and talk. But
LaWanda, yes. You don't have to. Nobody has to ask them what their position is. Their actions continue to show what their position is.
And we're gonna leave it at that.
Okay.
We're gonna leave it at that. Because
now, let me say this. I have to say this before we go.
Okay.
Here's where I want Black folks in Wichita to utilize their voice in a positive way. We've got a case coming up this Tuesday to honor and recognize our great Senator, Congressman, and County Commissioner, Billy McCray. Okay? Use your voice, folks. All you have to do is show up at the city council meeting Tuesday morning around 9:30, okay? And you'll have an opportunity to recognize and honor a man who died 10 years ago. Come June, it'll be 10 years. And yet, he's not on anybody's radar at City Hall. I have a major problem with that.
Okay.
And you should too.
Yes. Okay. And you and I had a small conversation. You know, I've had time to think about that. And like I told you, I know we got 10 minutes to wrap this up. We got 5 minutes. Okay. We got, League 42, great ball player, broke the color line, all that. That's awesome. He's not from Wichita. He's not from here. So okay. If we can put resources, and I don't care if it was private dollars, I know for a fact that city dollars were involved as well, right? But, there was private, lots and lots of private money for that statue, the Jackie Robinson, the whole shebang. We do not honor our own.
That's what I'm talking about.
We don't.
That's what I'm talking about.
We don't. And it's awesome that they changed the name of McAdams Rec Center for Carl Brewer. Personally, I think Carl Brewer's name should be somewhere downtown. because that was his baby.
That's where his legacy is.
That's his legacy. And why didn't we put something downtown, big and shiny, for the man that started the whole thing?
Now, let me expand on that. Now, no disrespect to anybody, but Carl Brewer's been dead less than 2 years. Right. He's got a building named after him.
Right.
Billy McRae's been dead for 10 years.
Right.
Did more for this community, this state, this city than any black politician in the last 100 years. Mm-hmm. And he's not on anybody's radar.
Right.
I have a problem with that.
Right. I'm with you. Like I said, I had to marinate on that because, again, the smoke and mirror was Maya Angelou's name. You know, her name, like, that's Maya Angelou. We can't just like forget her, but we got to honor. And the Bible tells us that too. Honor starts in your own home. Shoot.
Hey, I put up today. My dad told me this at the age of 5. Charity begins at home and spreads abroad.
Right.
Okay. Now, we here in Kansas, we have a tradition of honoring local heroes. Okay. I mean, listen, let's talk Dillon's. Most Kansans buy their groceries at Dillon's. Now, in the past, we've had Safeway, we've had Albertsons, all of them, but they couldn't compete. Why? Because Dillon's is considered a homegrown. J.S. Dillon's and Son of Hutchinson is where it all started. Pizza Hut. We've had major pizza chains here, but Pizza Hut, Frank and his brother Dan Carney, homegrown. Right. Okay, so what we do is we support, we promote, and we honor our homegrown people first.
Well, Dillon's, maybe another. When Dillon's pulled their stores out of key black communities and poor communities, we should have been in an uproar. And when they put in their deal that this building cannot be sold to another grocer, we should have been livid. And I'm gonna be honest, I was asleep at the wheel. I was asleep.
But we go back to the same thing. We don't use our voice.
I know.
We sit back and take it, and we take it, and we take it. Okay? We don't use our voice to say, hey, hold up, man. We've supported you here for 20 years, 30 years, whatever. And you mean all of a sudden you're going to pull out?
Right.
And leave us with a food desert?
Okay.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. So, Mr. Barfield, we got to do part 2 because we just touched the surface, man. We got to do part 2. We may bring Keenan on. I don't know what your schedule look like. I know you say 5. You got a time block. You can't participate, but we're going to figure this out. I want to talk Democrat, Republican. I want some true Republicans that are willing to die on their sword for their party. I want them here to explain themselves.
Well, let me explain something to you. If you have a problem with, I've got one in mind that I'm talking to right now, who's not from Wichita, not locally, but she's on a platform of it's time for Democrats time for blacks to divorce the Democratic Party. Well, so I'm interested in talking to her.
I know. Well, maybe you need to invite me to your show.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah,
either way, I want in on that conversation.
I'll schedule her and I'll let you know, and I'll schedule you, bring you on too.
Perfect. Okay, so guys, Mr. Barfield does have a YouTube channel, so you can catch him over on YouTube under
YourUrbanConnection.com.
YourUrbanConnection.com, and he talks about, again, relevant stuff just like we do over here. And Mr. Barfield don't hold any punches. Mr. Barfield, real quick, I'm pretty sure people can email the city council members letters of support for the name change if they are in favor of Mr. Billy McRae.
They can do that, or they can send the email to me, and I will be delivering hand written letters or whatever on Tuesday morning.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I've got several, so yes.
Okay. All right. So you guys heard that. Just get with Mr. Barfield.
My email is jbarfi@aol.com.
Hopefully I got it in there right. If not, we'll fix it. And then also on Tuesday at City Council, They are going to be taking up the ordinance for the community citizens review board. It still does not have the teeth in it that we want. And so again, talking about using your voices, please show up for that meeting or email city council members as well to say, table that ordinance or whatever and put some real teeth into it. So be on the lookout for that as well. I think that's about it for now because, we got to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know it's earlier than what we normally do, but this has been an awesome conversation. We will have part 2 coming up when we figure it out. But I just want you guys to tune in and remember, use your voices for whatever is bothering you. Whatever side of the fence you stand on, use your voice. And also, I want to remind people or tell people that COVID is spiking again. Whether you believe in if you believe in getting vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you believe in getting the booster, get the booster. If you believe in wearing a mask, wear the mask. I just encourage you to do whatever you need to do to keep yourself and your family safe. COVID's real, whether everybody believes it or not. Just do what's best for you and your family. Mr. Barfield, again, thank you for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure.
We're going to do this again. And parting words, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in to think about it. And remember, this is the show that's guaranteed that when you leave, you will have something to think about. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.